Hello everyone and welcome to the round 13 preview of NRL SuperCoach 2023. Must be one of the biggest weeks of the season if you're an overall player and you care about buy coverage, moving up the ranks, the tactics and stuff, the strategy. This is kind of the season, part of the season I should say, that we should all be excited about. Someone who went very down in the rankings last week. I'm very much looking forward to this buy period, and hopefully it's a way for me to pull up the rankings, and if you're in a similar position, then hopefully the same for you as well. Heaps and heaps to get through this stream. I've probably never prepped as much for us. I'll give you some bit of a heads up. I probably have never prepped this much in terms of slides and stuff for a stream than this one. So hopefully you guys enjoy it and find it useful. Right off into the sunset says, nice haircut, Aman. I haven't got a haircut yet. People must be thinking I've got a haircut. I haven't got a haircut soon. I will get one soon though. It's getting a bit too long. James is saying, love you, Aman. Shout out to Sunny Stenner saying, new to the channel and very keen. Welcome. Great to see new people still looking to join us on the channel, which is fantastic. Lots of members coming in, courtesy probably of Tom J, the absolute GOAT. If you don't know Tom J, you haven't been subscribed to the channel long enough, because the man hands out memberships like anything else. But great to see a lot of people in the chat. There are lots of questions for this week. 100% get that, given the how important the week is. I can't promise a lot of direct Q&A given how much stuff I think there is to go through, but hopefully we'll go through position by position, the origin guns, players that you can consider for this week, even the teams, buy schedules, all of that good stuff. We'll go through all of that this stream. So hopefully I can keep it for less than an hour, 15 minutes. That's kind of what I'm thinking this stream might be going on for. So if you've got kids, hopefully you've put the kids to bed and you've got the next hour or so free. If you're a uni student, hopefully you should study hard, but I don't mind if you take a break from your studies to watch me. And if you're just a worker who needs something to kick up your feet after a long day of work, then also welcome. Anyway, enough of the rambling. I will quickly just get into how I went last week. If you guys watched my Sunday wrap-up, was pretty terrible. So 1,138, not a great week. Fell all the way down to 13k after being I think I was 15k a few weeks ago, got up to 8k and fell back down, which is kind of why I'm hoping to use this buy period to hopefully get up in the rankings as well. But we won't get into the group league shout out, just given how much I think there is to get to. We'll try to get to that maybe at the end of the stream. G'day Stuart, nice to see you. Hitty, keen, great to hear that as well. All right, so I'll kind of just go through I'll go through everything, I guess, position by position, and hopefully that will cover off most of your questions. So before I get into the position by positions, I'll quickly just reference a couple of more broader macro points, I guess, around this whole buy period. So now we're in the state of origin period. We've got the New South Wales team and the Queensland team. I won't go too much, I guess, into the selections and stuff. There's a few other podcasts out there that have done that. I'll kind of keep it strictly more to the SuperCoach relevance. A few surprises out of the Queensland team. Dango Guy and Ponga. I thought Ponga was a dead cert to be playing. New South Wales team, not too surprising. I guess Campbell Graham is probably the biggest talking point out of that. We will touch on Campbell Graham a little bit later, and if he isn't an option to buy as well. But this little graphic that I've just put up on screen, I showed it a couple of weeks ago. Basically, it just shows every team's number of days rest after each of the 3 State of Origin games. And I thought it was quite handy just as a reference to, you can take a screenshot of this or whatever, just to see kind of, if you are holding on to Origin players, this will maybe form a bit of a useful guide to be able to see, what's the chances of them being able to back up. So this is something I put together and hopefully you might find useful. I think it probably just generally shows that, you've got most of our Origin players probably have decent times backing up, because the only teams that have a 1-day turnaround after State of Origin is Canberra, West Tigers, the Warriors and the Dragons, who really don't have, and Newcastle, in Game 3. There's really not a lot of overly Supercoach relevant things there too much. So I think it probably shows, if you're looking to hold on to the likes of a Cleary, if we look at Panthers, for example, 3-day turnaround after Game 1, 2-day turnaround after Game 2, 3-day turnaround after Game 3. He's always a chance of a rest, but at least that gives me a bit more confidence of holding on to him, because maybe there's a chance he plays round 14 and round 20. And then, similar say with like a Fifita. Fifita has been named to start, but if, let's say, he doesn't play full 80 minutes, I think he's also someone who's a good candidate to back up, because I look at the Gold Coast Titans, 2-day turnaround, he might maybe play 40, 50 minutes in that game, in that round 14 game, 3-day turnaround after Game 2, and then he has a 3-game turnaround again in Game 3. So hopefully this is maybe a useful guide, and I will be referencing the number of days rest on all the screens that we have Origin players, so we'll refer back to that as well during the stream. And I have this slide which is kind of maybe a potential restings for Origin players. I won't go into that too much because most of the stream will be going into this anyway, so I'll quickly just skip past this. Last thing I'll touch on before I get into more of the specific player things is this slide here shows the kind of the strength of schedule, I guess, over this entire bye period from rounds 13 to rounds 20. And I've sorted it now by SuperCoach points conceded. So instead of kind of using my normal ratings that I would normally do, I've just looked at what are the SuperCoach points conceded on average per round by each of the teams, and we've used that as our metric of difficulty. Very insightful if you look at a team like the West Tigers, who up until probably 3-4 weeks ago we were all looking at as a very easy matchup on paper, but throughout this, I think people started picking up on it about round 7 or 8 that the Tigers actually haven't been conceding that many SuperCoach points, and the numbers back that up here. They're actually the 6th best in terms of conceding SuperCoach points. So that's why you'll see in this particular table, West Tigers are shaded in the orange as kind of one of the slightly better teams, and why a team like we thought better in terms of like say the Cowboys, rock bottom for SuperCoach points conceded. And so I've used those ratings as well in the kind of sorting of difficulty. And I think this is just really helpful when you're looking at potential targets that you're looking to trade in this week. People are selling Hynes, people are jumping on the likes of Cody Walker, Dylan Brown. They're ranking really high up the top here. Like Damien Cook, obviously not named for New South Wales, another surprise. He's a very hot trade in this week, and a lot of that is due to A, he's a former gun, but B, the draw for him is really good. Now we'll discuss a little bit more deeper in terms of, chances of him potentially playing game 2 or game 3 for New South Wales, but Alex Johnston, a lot of these South players do look very appealing because they've got a pretty nice run of games from a matchup point of view. Same with the Parramatta Eels. You just have to be conscious with them that they don't play round 14. But even the Panthers players, people who are trading at the likes of Hosking, I don't hate to sell, but he is someone who in my current trade scenario I'm keeping. And what I like with holding on to Hosking is that I think there's a chance for him to play improved minutes over this Origin period, now that you've got Isaako and Liam Martin playing for New South Wales. And I'm looking at that run of games of Dragons, Roosters, Cowboys, Newcastle, Melbourne, up until the round 19 bye. If Cleary is backing up, playing outside of him, there's always a chance for some attacking stats. So I kind of don't mind holding on to the likes of a Hosking, same as like a Taruva. If you've held on to him, I think there could be potentially some benefits that we could get over this next little period of time. And so it is something I'm trying to think about with these teams in terms of, we look at all the way down the bottom, the likes of the Cowboys and the Dragons. Yes, they do cover this week, but if I look further ahead, I don't love their matchups coming up. So that kind of does take me a little bit away from players from those particular teams. So hopefully that might be useful for you guys. I've also added just quickly the number of games that every team will play between round 13 to round 20. Every team plays at minimum of 6 games. There's only 2 teams that will play 7 though, and that is the Dolphins and that is the Warriors. Now to me the Dolphins look appealing because they rank decently in terms of draw difficulty. So if you're looking at your Isaakos, Marshall Kings, even the others like Cody Nikarima, Lemuelu, all the non-Origin guys, they will probably benefit the most. The only game they don't cover is round 16, but I would highly recommend in the SuperCoach app just looking at your team, counting how many players you have for round 16. I haven't been planning for round 16, and currently I think I have like 15 players. I think you'll find that your team is naturally already well set up for round 16. So this is why I think investing in Dolphins players this week is not a bad idea, because they've got a decent draw, decent game this week as well against the Dragons, and they've got them and the Warriors play 7 games. So you're getting an extra game over every other team in the competition. So I think that is something that is pretty useful to note of, if you're looking at particular players to target this week. Outside of that, I don't think there's really too much more to touch on this particular slide, but again, this is something that might be useful that you can just constantly refer back to during the Origin period, and it might help inform some of your trade in targets for this week, but also maybe who you don't look to trade in. Because I'm looking at, before I get into the round 13 players, I know people have been looking at, or they're still somewhat thinking about round 14, thinking about the likes of the Sharks players, Britton Nikora, Ronaldo Mulatalo, maybe the likes of, who else could I be thinking of? Maybe Melbourne players who cover round 16. Sharks look appealing because their draw difficulty is not too bad after round 16. But anyway, I probably will keep it at that. I think we'll get a little bit more into the specific player stuff, but hopefully you guys found that somewhat useful to kind of frame, I guess, our thinking for round 13. And I found this useful just putting this analysis together as well. Alright, so I think the first thing I wanted to touch on was the big ones about Nathan Cleary, Nicho Hynes, and I've also just thrown in Cam Munster into this equation about kind of the key halves and 5/8 for Supercoach who are bound for Origin. And the question is obviously, do you hold or do you sell them during this period of time? Now, I've put a very basic expected points calculation that I'm going to be showing for most of the players that I show throughout this stream. It's a very straightforward, how many games do I think that they could play during this round 13 to 20 period? Just multiply by their average. I'm not trying to do anything too fancy, just try to keep it pretty even keel, I think, for most players. I'll quickly pause. I'm seeing a few questions come in from like Mudcrab about thoughts on your trades. I'll admit I probably won't be able to answer specific questions in more depth about specific trades until probably the end of the stream. And obviously the stream's going quite fast as well, so it's a little bit hard to see. But hopefully, if you've got questions about the likes of Hynes and stuff, then hopefully this section will be useful for you. So what you can see as well next to Hynes, Cleary and Munster there is I've put in the number of rest days post their State of Origin games. So Penrith and Melbourne don't actually have too bad of a rest period. 3 days for Melbourne, then 2, and then 2. Penrith is 3, 2, and then 3. So I think there was a question earlier about will Munster back up. Munster has apparently been carrying some kind of a rib or some type of issue that I need to get my head around. I need to double check it. But I think the way that Melbourne are positioned on the ladder, they're doing okay, but not fantastically. I think Munster is someone who is a likely candidate to back up, at least for round 14, because it's a 3-day turnaround. Game 2 turnaround is 2 days, which is maybe a little bit tougher. Maybe you could argue that's a rest game because Penrith is in round 18. They would probably want Munster to be fully healthy for that matchup. And then round 20 is a 2-day turnaround, but it's against the Roosters, who could be improved by that point. I think Munster will play between 4 to 5 games because remember, he'll miss 13. All of these Origin players will miss 13, 16 and 19. So I think Munster is a good chance of playing, 15 for sure. Good chance of 14, so that's 2 games. Very good chance of 18, that's 3. And then I think he'll definitely play at least one of 17 or 20. So I think he'll play a minimum 4 games. I would be not that surprised if he played 5 games though. And putting his expected points, that's a range of 296 to 370. Now, out of context, not comparing to the other 5/8, it looks a little bit odd, but the next section will show you what that is in relation to some of the options that you could look to trade in this week, like the Codys and the Moses and the Dylan Browns and stuff. I've done similar thing with the other 2 in Cleary and Hynes. Hynes can only play a maximum of 4 games, but I expect him to back up because he's been named on the 14. I don't think there's going to be big minutes there, so I think with Hynes, very likely that he will back up. The issue with Hynes is that he backs up to Broncos, Melbourne. The Dragons game in round 18 is very scary as a non-owner if you don't own Hynes that week. And then Warriors away in round 20. Warriors have improved, but he's got a very good record against them. So taking his average, he could play 4 games and score 400 points. So he's clearly going even more than, say, potentially Munster could in 5 games. And with Cleary, I think he's got a chance of playing at least minimum 4 games, but potentially 5 games as well. So I think he plays 14. I think he plays 15 for sure. He might not play 17. He will definitely play 18, so that's 3. And I think there's a good chance of playing round 20, which is against the Dolphins in the 3-day turnaround. So I can see minimum 4 games there, which at his average is around a minimum of 352 points. But he could get up to 440 if he played the 5 games. Just given the fact that I think the matchups that Cleary has in his period are better than Hynes, and the chance that he could play 1 extra game than Hynes when Hynes is absolutely maxed at 4 because he's got that extra bye in round 17. That's the reason why you're seeing a lot of people holding on to Cleary, but a lot of people selling Hynes. I'm personally probably going to be selling Hynes this week. Given my rank, I think I need to kind of do some moves to get up ahead if I can. But I think with Hynes is somewhat tough games against Broncos, Melbourne. Really, the Dragons game around 18 is what is scary, but hopefully by then we can make enough points going with an alternative option that I think it's probably worth maybe anti-potting Hynes. And I think this next slide will hopefully put this all into a little bit more perspective. So I've showed some of the more popular alternatives, I think, in the halves that people are going to. For halfback, really, I've nailed down to Mitch Moses and Shaun Johnson. And for the 5'8", it's Cody Walker and Dylan Brown. I know there are some other options that you could maybe look at, like an Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds, but I don't think they're quite good enough to be selling the likes of a Nicho Hynes for. I've kind of narrowed it down to these 4. So what you can see is I've added in Moses, Shaun Johnson, Cody Walker and Dylan Brown and their expected points. Again, it's just based on how many games do I expect them to play over this period times their average. So very popular move that people are doing. Nicho Hynes to Cody Walker via Isaako. That's probably a move that I will be doing because I think Cody is guaranteed to play 6. Like, I don't think Cody is going to be featuring for New South Wales. So with Cody playing 6 games, and those 6 games being Raiders, Titans, Dragons, Cowboys, Bulldogs, Warriors, that's a great run of games. We touched on it already. So I really like that. And at his average currently at 76, that's 456 points. So there's a good chance that playing the 2 extra games, he, purely based on averages, will outscore Nicho Hynes. The potential could be even more than that as well. If he has slightly bigger games and maybe goes on like an 85 game average. And maybe let's say Hynes, regresses to what? I don't know, 90. There's probably enough there that makes the move justifiable enough for me. And it's the same thing with Dylan Brown, who's very similar, plays 6 games at his current average, 450 points. It's more than what I think Hynes will get. Therefore, that's why I think it's okay to justify the move. Just to quickly answer Jaden's question, if you've already sold Cleary, surely you can't sell Hynes as well. I agree with that. I think you need to own at least one of them during this period because it's also a price thing. I'll quickly go back. Cleary is 893k, Hynes is 864k. We are going to be running low on trades come round 2021, when you want to getting these guys back in. You want to try to make sure you leave yourself the ability to go back to them. At that high price, I think you do need to try to keep one of them. So I think people who've done the Cleary to Moses, I would personally sell Nicho Hynes. Sorry, got that wrong. If you've already sold Cleary to Moses, I would hold on to Nicho Hynes. As people who are coming in with Cleary and Hynes double up, I think it's perfectly fine to sell Hynes on for one of Walker or Dylan Brown. If it's a straight 50-50 between the 2 of Walker and Brown and you own neither, to be perfectly honest, despite how much I love Dylan Brown, I would probably lean Cody. Just for the fact that Dylbags has got his bye next week in round 14, and South's draw I think is just better. And I think round 16 is a week that you can cover if you own Cody and he misses that week. So that's how I would differentiate between the 2 of them. Now, in terms of the halfback options, so SJ and Moses. So SJ's at a really nice price of 597k. I do prefer Moses. I just think he's got a bigger ceiling. But I was listening to the Whisperers podcast just before this, and I agree with the point that he made. I think the double up, if you already own a Dylbags plus getting Moses, I think makes things a little bit awkward for round 14. And so that's kind of why I don't like, if you already own Dylbags, I would probably go to SJ. If you're avoiding Dylbags, then I think go Moses is kind of how I see. I wouldn't like to have both of them. Whilst they can both go big, I think SJ is probably more of your kind of steady option, and Hynes down to him banks you like 200 and something K. But I think Moses, it's a little bit risky. I think if you've already got that if you've already got that Dylbags double up. And just on Walker and Dylbags, their prices are very expensive. Like I can see Jackson here saying Cody Walker at 800k is tempting but yucky. I can definitely kind of get that feeling because look, Cody was much cheaper than that a few weeks ago and he's just been absolutely killing it. But I kind of see, like, in terms of if you want to call it a round 13 must-have, I'm starting to think of Cody as a round 13 must-have, and it's changed because of how Origin has fallen. Campbell Graham is back playing for the Rabbitohs, which is a bit of a kerfuffle in itself. Damien Cook hasn't been named. He will be playing this week as well in round 13. I think, yes, no Latrell, no Jai Arrow, but I think Jai Arrow is easy to cover. I think the Rabbitohs had so many middle forward issues early in the season and they still did very well. Latrell is obviously a big out, but I think with Cook and Cody still there, I think there's enough, and Cam Murray, and no Cam Murray. I still think there's enough in that team to be able to say that Walker will probably run the show. And yeah, I think for me, I want to take that gamble of just Hynes is sitting there not doing anything for me this week. If I can jump to Cody and he can get 100 plus, it might be just enough of a good move. Options, I view Walker as one of those like kind of close to must-haves. So that's personally why I'm biting the bullet. And hopefully if Walker and Hynes can maintain value, you can see that South have a bye in round 20. I'll probably try to use that time to switch Cody Walker straight back to Nicho Hynes when he's playing. Jaden, to answer your questions, yes, Hynes will definitely play round 14. I can't see a situation where he won't back up unless, God forbid, there's some type of injury that happens to him. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But anyway, that's kind of my take on the whole Cleary, Hynes, and even Munster. Like, for example, Munster, we quickly mentioned him. I think Munster is someone that you can afford to sell, potentially, because I think there is enough upside switching from him to the likes of a Walker or a Dylbags. given that you're going to get at least one extra game out of the two. You would probably, it's a little bit harder to justify, I think, because Munster, even when he's back, can still do very well. But I do think that's, Dylbags and Cody look like pretty close to must-haves this week for me. Ian is saying, let me just quickly make sure. It says chat disconnected. Quickly in the chat, guys, if you can just give me a thumbs up or an all good, just to make sure you guys can still hear me. I think my internet is still looking okay. I think there's just a bit of lag on the YouTube side, so I'll keep pressing ahead. But just let me know if you guys can still hear me. That would be appreciated. So I think the next one is, we were talking about Damien Cook. We'll go through the hooker position now. So the main Origin player here that people will be holding is Harry Grant. Do you hold Harry Grant or do you sell him? It's not as clear cut in my opinion with hooker, because it's not as good or higher upside position compared to the halves. So I can definitely see an argument to hold Grant. The thing with Grant is that if he's named on the bench for Queensland, he's not going to be playing the full 80, probably closer to say playing 40 to 45 maybe max. It's laggy, you guys are saying. Okay, yeah, all good. Okay, sweet. Sorry, I was a little bit frazzled by the whole stream internet issues, but hopefully it's all good to go. Yeah, I don't think Grant is a must sell, but I think the way that the hooker position is, and with Damien Cook coming in a lot cheaper, I like Cook as a buy for this week, just mainly because of, I think, the fact that he's got that really nice draw. He could try to come out and try to prove a point potentially to Freddie and New South Wales, and I know there's a risk that he does play game 2. He already has the bye in round 16 anyway, so he's going to miss that game regardless of if he plays Origin or not. After game 2, I can't remember how many days the Rabbitohs have to back up. Let me have a quick look. They've got a 3-day turnaround. So I think there's a good chance that he backs up as well after game 2, even if he was played in game 2, and it's against the Cowboys. Then he's got Warriors, Bulldogs. Yeah, I like Damien Cook as a trade-in for this week, to be honest. So I'm personally thinking of going with Damien Cook myself this round. I do prefer Marshall King. I think there was a few questions saying Marshall King or Cook. I definitely prefer Marshall King. Just I think he's shown more this season. But remember, Rabbitohs have had a pretty tough draw this kind of early period. Now the draw's starting to open up a bit. No Latrell, I think, will maybe be good for him too, in terms of just his Supercoach output. And he's someone that you could trade in and feasibly hold for the rest of the season, maybe as a second hooker, as a backup to maybe like a Harry Grant. So I definitely prefer Marshall King, but Cook I think is definitely appealing. He's, I think, the most traded in player this round as well. Now, in terms of him versus Robson, I think I prefer Cook as well. I think we just know that he's probably got more of a ceiling, I think, than Robson. Based and power stats are very similar, but I just think he's got more likelihood to get attacking stats, in my opinion, with his draw coming up. We looked at it before, but the Cowboys draw was not the best for the longer term. And so I personally am pretty keen on going with Cook this week. And I don't mind selling Harry Grant because he's at a price tag that I think it's somewhat easy to get back to him as well. In terms of a cheaper option in Cody Nikorima, look, 483k, you have missed a few price rises out of him, which is a bit unfortunate if you were keen on him, but you wanted to wait and see. He's been named at fullback this week. I think Supercoach Guns put a post out earlier, or tweet, that he averages about 57 in like the few games that he's played at fullback. We highlighted before that the Dolphins play the most games, them and the Warriors. So play 7 games, based on expected points, he'd be getting about 329 points. Cook would be getting about 366 in his 6 games if he doesn't play Origin. Robson 348. Jeremy Marshall-King really stands out because he's got the 7 games, 469 points. So to me, Marshall-King seems the best option by far, given his number of games that he'll play during the bye period and the kind of the averages that he's shown so far this season. But I understand he is obviously at a higher price tag. So he's definitely number 1 for me. Cook probably number 2. Then I'd probably go Nikorima instead of Robson. Just take the lower price, take the form that he's showing as well. Maybe you'll get some price rises out of him too, and maybe Robson coming in number 4. I'm just kind of generally off the Cowboys to an extent. Apologies, I can still see that the stream quality is not the best, so hopefully I don't want to refresh because I think that might stuff up my stream. But hopefully it is all good. I'm just going to quickly check on my OBS. Let's see how we're going. We're on. It says no dropped frames, but unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. That's a bit of a shame. I would like to have the chat come in for the stream, but hopefully you guys can still hear me, and I'll keep pressing ahead. Analytics, view activity, stream health. See, this is so weird. My stream health is saying excellent. It's obviously just an internet thing, which is very strange, but I'm loath to change my internet. Actually, let me try this real quick. Actually, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to stuff around with the settings too much. Anyway, that's kind of my take on the hookers. Now, we'll quickly move on to the next position, which is the second row forward. Okay, sorry, before I do that, I'm just going to refresh this stream and see if it's still going okay. Okay, sorry. Reverse buffering. Okay. Sorry. I've literally just refreshed the stream, command F5, and now the stream's back. Sorry, the chat is back, so that's good. That's kind of what I wanted to. Can't read the stats. Yeah, sorry, the quality was a bit crappy. Hopefully it's all good now. Sorry about that, guys. I don't want to have to cancel the stream. I think it's a really important week. David, good to see you. David Schuster, my man. Can you please tell your bro to give us another 100-point game this week? That would be very much appreciated. Sorry, I'll quickly go back to the hookers now that it looks as though quality is better, just so you guys can see the stats for a little bit longer. Grant's definitely not a must-sell Steezers, and the reason for that is if you look in the top right, the number of days rest is 3, 2, and 2 after Origin. And I think the fact that he's going to be playing only kind of 40 minutes in Origin makes me think that he will definitely back up. They don't have the quality replacements. So, yeah, for me, Grant is definitely not a must-sell. Like, put it this way, I've got Harry Grant, I've got Reed Marnie. If I could sell Reed Marnie and do the trade that I want, I'd probably do it, but I can't do it with my trades. So I'm thinking Grant is probably someone who, look, he's not shown as much as he has in previous seasons where he's been like so much better than every other hooker. He's still the best, but Marshall King is 2 points behind him. He's not doing that too bad. Grant might regress to maybe a 65 on some slower minutes. Cook maybe goes up to 63, 64. He can maybe more or less match him. So not a must sell, but I do think that there is an option to veer away from him and, you know, maybe capitalize on a Cook with a really good draw coming up. Alrighty. Yeah, we sweet now. Okay, cool. Hopefully we'll keep pressing ahead while we've got the stream working well. So, David Schuster, $5 done, 100 points coming right up, mate. Thank you so much. Appreciate that a lot. Really, really great. Thank you so much. What if you got Grant and Sonny Luke? Yeah, look, Sonny Luke would 100% be the person I'd sell above Grant. Another cheaper option there's a couple, I haven't put their stats here, but a couple of who did come up were Freddie Lussick. Wade Egan's completely out of the 17. He's like 331k. His stats haven't been great, but he has got a couple of 40, 50 scores. Maybe he's an option. The other one was maybe Jacob Little, but he didn't have great PPM last week either. So I think there's not a lot of quality options at a cheap hooker price. I think you need to go spend up a little bit, even up to a Cody Nikarima, still like more than 200k. It probably just makes it easier for you to sell Grant, I guess, from a funds point of view. Yeah, actually, that's a good point with Sonny Luke. There's, as Andy says here, Sonny's been playing 60 minutes in New South Wales Cup, looking like minutes could continue with Kenny playing more of a middle role. I think during this Origin period, then I think you could be, you could be potentially seeing Sonny Luke maybe could play extra minutes. All right, we'll pause on the hooker chat. I can't believe I keep saying the word hooker. Sorry, I've got the intelligence of a 10-year-old. But we'll touch on the second row forwards. The two main Origin players I think is Dave Fifita, Cam Murray. Look, Murray feels like a sell because of the way he's been playing, but he's 528k, so it is a very low price that you're selling him at. Jake Turpin from Indra, he won't cover round 13, so that's kind of why we haven't really spoken about him too much, but probably an option maybe that you can consider from next week a little bit more. So in terms of your second row forwards, I think there's a lot of options that you could consider for round 13. So look, with Fifita, I think let's just touch on the big one here, the big boy. So name to start for Queensland, he's 942k. And he has a break-even of 61, which is insane. He still could get up even more expensive. He's got 4 tons in a row. I'm likely to hold on to Fifita. I'm already selling Hynes for Cody. I'm probably selling Grant. I'm definitely selling Val Holmes. And I'm probably boosting to sell also like Tom Gilbert. I can't sell all my Origin players. Otherwise, I'm going to be leaving myself too short to try to bring back too many of them. There is definitely an opportunity for you to cash in on Fifita, but the thing is that you cash in on him, and realistically, with a break-even of 61, the fact that he's got 2 days rest, then 3 days, then 3 days again, it feels like a very easy opportunity for the Titans to, like, he just looks fitter this season, and I think he's got a good chance of backing up. Round 14 against the Rabbitohs, it's a tough game. The Titans probably want him for that. He'll definitely play round 15. Round 17 is a tough game against the Broncos, local derby, 3-game turnaround. I can see him playing that one. Definitely plays 18. Round 20 against Parramatta, 3 days turnaround. Look, maybe he gets a rest in one of those games, but even if he plays, let's say, 4 to 5 games, I've got his expected points based on his average at 356 to 445. If you look down that list that I've got there, the only players who have more than that 356 is Olaquatu's about the same, Hopgood, Lemuelu, and Kolomatangi, but Kolomatangi is coming back from an injury as well. And like a Zach Hosking, who I assume most people already own. There's really not a lot of options that you can sell to who could potentially even match him, even playing less games. He's just been that much better than every other second row forward. Combined with him having decent turnarounds, it feels very difficult for me to sell Fifita. I don't hate it, people selling Fifita, you cashing in, but I feel like he's going to be one who will be very difficult to trade back up to later on. So I can see Jaden's question here, which is, what if I sell Fifita for Harris? That's Tohu Harris. Allows him to get Isaako and Cody Walker for Katoa and Holmes. Now, look, I think those are good moves of the cat, and this is where it's, your team and your risk appetite, I guess, comes into it. Where are you comfortable selling him? And look, Fifita is probably not going to go against Rabbitohs and get like 110, but he's that kind of player that he can, because we saw it last week where he just kind of like men against boys, just steamrolled a couple players and scored for a try. So for me, Fifita just feels like any given week in the way that he's playing, he looks confident, he looks fit. So I don't hate those trades, Jaden, but personally, I'm not looking to sell Fifita. I would sell Murray if I could. I understand though it's a bit difficult at his price tag, because around his price, you've got maybe like a Jackson Ford, but Jackson Ford has been good. He benefits from playing 7 games, but based on his expected points, he gets maybe about 357 points. Whereas you've got the likes of, even a Hosking could maybe outscore him playing 1 less game. Olaquatu could outscore him playing 1 less game. Hopgood, I think, will definitely outscore him playing 1 less game. I think there's plenty of other better options than Ford. So I would try to use Murray if you want to sell him, because I think Murray is a good chance of getting rested as well, with Souths doing quite well. And, their matchups aren't the toughest on paper. He's one who I think, if you can afford to stash him, fine. But I think he's also one that is pretty easy to sell just with Origin. I think his chances of backing up are a little bit less. And so I guess in terms of the prime trade-in targets for this round, without Madison, without Andrew Davey, without Junior Paulo, without Ruben Campbell-Gillard, Joe Onu to the club, I would be like, Jermaine Hopgood is coming up there in terms of almost must-haves for this week too. I will probably be getting, so I'm kind of in a battle of the Jermaines this week. I'm either getting Jermaine Hopgood, I'm getting Jermaine Isaako. We'll get onto that a little bit more in my trade-in targets. But Hopgood is looking really appealing because my second row forward is pretty dire. I've got a pretty bad bench, whereas my centre wing, I can probably cover a little bit easier. Look, I think Hopgood this week, we've seen his ceiling. He can get 100 plus in any given week, and I think he should be playing big minutes this week as well. It's a good matchup home to the Cowboys, who are without. Who are they without? They're without Val Holmes, without Dearden, without Cotter, without Taulagi. Like, they've got a few big outs there. So I really like Hopgood as a trade in this week. There's no guessing as to why he's such a popular trade in this week. Very good chance I will be getting him in this week too. I don't see Origin really on the radar for him, so I think he plays these 6 games. And with Maddo being out for like 3 to 6 weeks, if people are holding on to Maddo, I think for me that's a very easy sell to someone like a Hopgood. There's a couple of other options I've got here, like Olaquatu, Lemuelu as well, because I think there was a few questions about the likes of Lemuelu. Now he's also he's only like 15k cheaper than Hopgood, and while he plays 1 extra game than him, I still don't think, based on his potential average, I think he hasn't got a chance to outscore Hopgood in my opinion. So I still prefer Hopgood even with that round 14 bye, because of the fact that I think will just outperform him. And Olaquatu, I'm seeing some things in the chat as well about saying, can't believe Olaquatu wasn't picked. Olaquatu, I think, has just been, he first 6-7 weeks of the season, he was probably a shoo-in. but I think the way that Manly had kind of dipped in form, I think he kind of went with it. And the way that he plays, he's not like a high work rate player, at least I think so. He's more of a high impact player with big plays. We felt like, I think if we felt he maybe gotten a bit quiet over the last few weeks. And Hudson Young, I think, has been pretty solid all the way through. So I think that's probably the reason why Olakwatu wasn't picked over a Hudson Young. Frizzell, I think you can make an argument, but Frizzell, I guess Freddie's probably thinking about it like, look, we'll just go with the guy who's got experience because he just wants to make sure that he's got maybe enough experience around. But so Olakwatu's maybe an option, but I think Manly will... Look, I'm sorry, David, I know you're in the chat, but I think without Gerbo now, it's been reported Gerbo's going to be out for like 6 weeks with a calf issue. Burbo will be out for like 4 to something weeks. No Turbo during this Origin, in the games during Origin, no Turbo. So all the Urbos are out. No Cherry Evans. Like, I don't think Manly will have a great little run here. Like, Gerbo is such a big out for them. So that's kind of why I'm not personally too keen on some of the Manly options. So Olakwatu for me, not too much of an option. My car, I can see a question on Joe Offengawi. When we get to front row forwards a little bit later, definitely we'll be talking about him too. So hold fire on that question. I can see Galway's asked the same thing as well. Jason saying, out of Hopgood and Fanua Blake, who would be a better trade-in? So look, I'll give you a quick spoiler. So what did I say? I've got Hopgood's expected points at 438. I've got AFB at 497. That's AFB on a 71 average. So I've got AFB getting about 40 points extra than Hopgood. But I feel like Hopgood's average is a bit more sustainable. So my gut is still leaning towards Hopgood because Fanua Blake is just so much more expensive. So I think I would still take the money saving, maybe a slight less points, and go with Jermaine. That's my reasoning anyway, Jason. Jack Bird, I've quickly got here too. We touched on it at the beginning of the stream. I don't love the Dragons draw, so I think your upside is kind of capped with him. He'll probably get you maybe like 50 to 60. He also had a bit of an injury cloud last week with what was it, knee soreness. That kind of puts me off him too. So I think of your round 13 trade-in options, I like Hopgood. I don't think you need to go too crazy as well because I think the likes of Britton Nickera could really be an option as well from next week. And I think Preston and Hosking, just while we're on the subject, so I've got their expected points in this table too. Preston I've got for 360, Hosking I've got for 384. They both cover round 16, and Preston covers round 19. So I think if people are looking to sell between one of Hosking or Preston, I would sell Hosking first because I think you've got better buy coverage out of Preston. But I think Hosking is a fine hole too because we talked about it earlier. The draw is pretty good for Penrith. I think he's going to get bigger minutes during this whole Origin period too. And so, look, if you're doing like a Hosking to Hopgood for this week, I get it. But because I think there is genuine upside to that move. But if you can find another way to get to someone like a Hopgood, I think if you can, maybe explore it. Because I think Hosking and Preston will be fine over this little period, even if they don't play round 13 as well. Right. That's my kind of summary, I guess, on the 2RS, I guess. If there's any other players I've missed, put him in the chat. Maybe I'll have a think about him. There's getting a lot of questions about AFB and Joe, so I think we'll get to front row forward now first, and we'll skip back to some of the other positions. So in terms of the Origin, really I think it was Payne Haas is the main one, who people were probably having and thinking about, do they hold or do they sell? So I've got the backup days for Broncos here. It's 2 days, 3 days, then 2 days after game 1, 2, 3. So it's not too bad. It's really probably only game 2 with the 3-day turnaround where you think Payne Haas has a good chance of maybe getting a rest or maybe getting reduced minutes. So, I mean, the stats of Payne Haas are definitely the best. Average minutes of 59. I've got his expected points if he plays between 4 to 5 games, between 300 to 375 points. That's kind of what I've got him down for if he misses one game. I think if he gets 4 games, then it'll be 300, 5, 375. So I think with some of the options you've got around, like, it's kind of two things. Front row forward is a position I hate doing extra trade on because the upside is so low. And you can see here, if you trade Payne Haas out, let's say he plays 5 games, I've got Horsbrough playing 348. I've got Tarpany getting 366. I've got DeBellin 378. Like, we're talking about like 20, 30 points here. You're not actually looking at a whole heap of upside going from Haas to like one of these other front row forwards. So Haas is one where I think, look, if you can just afford to hold him, fine, you can just keep him. I don't think you're going to get burnt by another front row forward. But if you want to try to capitalize on round 13 numbers, then I think there's definitely a consideration, because with a 703 price tag, you can probably cash in on him and, go down to, say, like a Tohu Harris, for example. 100k out of that move. Tohu Harris, sorry, I quickly skimmed over him. Given that Harris plays 7 games and his average of 65, I've got him for 455 points. Like, you are definitely probably getting more points out of Tohu Harris barring any injury. So paying Haas to Harris, I think that's a good move, getting 100k, and you're probably getting more points over this origin period. Maybe Joe Tarpany would be next, because he's also getting you like maybe 90k, and I think you've got similar points. Outside of that though, I mean, Fullbacks is very tempting at his average, but he's been scoring a lot of tries. I don't know how sustainable they are. The games that they've got are not the easiest, but I could be sitting here in a few weeks thinking, my God, why didn't you just not get Fullbacks? But he's so expensive now, I just feel like it's very difficult to go there. I would probably and same with DeBellin at 684k. He's again not one I'd be looking at too hard. I'd probably be going one of Tarpany or Tohu instead. Now, there's a lot of love for Joe O in the chat. A lot of people are asking me, I need a new photo. Look, he literally got named for Parramatta today. He played for the Tigers on Saturday. I don't think there's been any photos that I've seen on the internet. I generally did check this. Oh, no, sorry. I lie. Okay, you know what? You guys wanted it. Can we get a live photo change? Mudcrab is baying for it. He wants it. He wants the live photo change. Oh, wait a second. Hold up here. What's going on? There's a photo of him in an Eels jersey. Okay. All right. Mudcrab, just because I didn't get to your trade question earlier, we'll do this for you. Okay. So, this is gonna be awful. I'm gonna have to crop this as well. Get out Bailey. Okay, we're gonna have to look. You know what? Because I love Dylbags, we'll keep Dylbags in the photo of Joe O. How about that? All right, goodbye, Tigers, Joe O. You've gone. You're gone skis. You're an Eels man now. All right, there you go. Are you happy? Are you happy, Mudcrab? You got Joffa in the Eels jersey now. Oh yeah, Tarpany playing lock. I think Tarpany playing lock is also hopefully good for him. Someone might be able to fact check this for me, but hopefully it was when Tarpany was playing lock last year when he went on his mad run. Anyway, offering Gowie. Someone asked earlier in the chat if they were asking, I think, for a front row forward, or maybe it was on another stream. They were asking for a front row forward less than 450k. I think, to be honest, offering Gowie is probably worth the punt, because, I mean, the issue as well is that if you don't get him this week, he's got the bye in round 14, so you're going to be short another play there. So just be conscious of the thing if you buy Eels players, is that they're missing next week. You just want to make sure you're not selling yourself too short for that week. But look, 420k it's not a bad price, and often Gowie was good last season as well. People just need to remember that, like, he was when he was playing in the middle. Like, I'm just going to quickly pull out his 2022 numbers, courtesy of NRL SuperCoach Stats, which is probably the GOAT website of SuperCoach. So last year his average was 61 for an average minutes of 64. So his PPM wasn't amazing. So far this base power PPM has been 1.04, so that kind of seems to be around what he'll get. Look, in terms of the minutes he'll get this week, like, he's not unmatch fit. Like, he's been playing games for the Tigers, so he's got the match fitness. So I think with the way that the middles have been kind of shaped out for the Eels, the fact that they were kind of very keen to bring him in kind of makes me think that his minutes might step up from that average of 37 to maybe, let's say, 45-50, maybe 45-50. So I think he'll be safe for maybe around 50 points this week, which is fine. It's not amazing, but at the price tag, if you're going for a cheap front row forward, like maybe Oichi Kamanu if you're moving on, I think there's not many other options around that. I'm going to quickly just check, is he dual? If he's dual in SuperCoach like he was last year, I think that probably makes him I'd probably then give it my recommendation of, like, yeah, I think it's it'd give me more confidence to say, yeah, I think it's worth the punt, because the middles is definitely an issue with Madison out now as well for the Eels, and with Polo during this whole origin period. I think Offengawi will be fairly handy for them. He's 2RF front row forward, so he's a dual player. If you want a cheap front row forward, I think go for it. I think go for it. I'm probably going to be still going with Tohu. I'm probably not going to be getting Joe O myself, but I can't knock that trade in because I think his numbers are fine. If he gets about the 50 minutes, he'll get you about 50 points, 420k. It's fine. It's kind of like think of him a bit like a Christian Walsh type of play, except he's dual, which I think is quite handy. So, like, probably that 240 expected points that I've got for Offengow, we probably just need to put a little bit of, that's not quite accurate because I'm expecting him to probably step up his average a little bit as well. But anyway, I think Joffa is a decent trade-in. And I think that probably summarizes most of my thoughts around the front row forwards. Horsburgh has been named on the edge this week, so I think he'll play the full 80, but it just might mean his PPM is a little bit down. So I think I'd probably just rather take Tarpany, just about 8k more expensive, and both of them have the dual, but I think Tarpany's just safer he's not going to be an option for Origin at all. Horsburgh may be still somewhat of a risk at playing Origin if there's maybe some injuries in Queensland Middles stocks. De Bellin, I think that price tag is just too much. Regrettably, I think AFB is also just too expensive as well. But I think someone like Payne Haas, if you're holding on to and you want to bank some coin, him down to Tohu Harris gets you 100k. I think that's a good trade from an expected points point of view. Alright, so we've finished the Joffa front row forward chat. Let's get on to centre wing. So I wanted to do this after I spoke about the 2RF because I wanted to talk about the Jermaine head-to-head that I'm battling with, which is the Isaako versus Hopgood style. So quickly to touch on Val Holmes, he's probably the one Origin centre who I think most people have. For me, he feels a very easy sell. You can see in the expected points below me, I've got him at about 4 to 5 games played, points average about 256 to 320. But I think you can see most of the other centre wings here probably score at least the same, if not more than him. So I think there's enough good centre wing options that I think you can bank the money about at the 624k. That to me, look, Val Holmes will miss round 13, he'll miss round 15. Round 14 is against Melbourne. Round 17 is against the Rabbitohs. He's got a decent game against the Tigers in round 18, but we just saw the Tigers are actually not bad for conceding Supercoach points. Misses round 19, and then it's round 20 is Manly. So for me, I think the draw even is not that good. So Holmes to me feels like a pretty easy sell. Gregosaurus is 599k. Sorry, I knew there was going to be something wrong in this stream. Something was going to be wrong. Alright, Mudcrab, we'll quickly answer your questions and then we'll get on to it because I know you've been pressing me. Lane to Tohu, good. Hosking to Cook via Stone and Val Holmes to Lomax. I don't love Lomax. You saw earlier how I showed the Dragons draw. I don't like it. I prefer some of these other centre wings that I've got here, personally. Yeah, I guess if you're okay with Lomax over Isaako, then fine. I mean, you're taking a big money saving there. But I do like Isaako over this period of time. He's actually got the highest expected points out of, I think, any player that I've looked at in this entire stream. So he's 681k and he's been averaging 76 and his stats are just really, really good. Like if I quickly look at, because the thing is he goal kicks, right? So he's got those to add to his floor, but he's been averaging 27 in base and scoring at least 15 to 20 points maybe a week on goal kicks. So he's getting you about 45 to 50 a week most weeks. So he's a player who I know he's a bit kind of polarizing in the Supercoach community because I think people have had some bad experiences with him. I think if you're willing to just pay that price, I think he's a great trade in this week because it only misses round 16, which, as I said before, I think you're going to find is actually a somewhat easier week to cover. Round 17 is actually going to be a very, very tough week. Round 17, we have the Tigers on a bye, the Bulldogs are on a bye, and who's on a bye in round 17? Sorry, let me have a quick... So I'm going to have to quickly flick through my slides to double check that. We've got round 17 buys for the West Tigers, the Sharks, and the Bulldogs. So you can imagine if you're looking at the likes of, you've got a Buller, if you've got Preston, Reid Marnie, Harrison Edwards, you get the likes of a Nickera, Mulatalo, like you're going to get 6-7 players out straight away. And these are good quality players. So I think the round 17 coverage is not to be understated. So I think, and he's got a pretty good, he's got Parramatta, which is not great. But he's got Dragons this week. So I like the trade-in for Isaako this week. And so I'm just kind of battling, do I go Val Holmes to him or do I go Val Holmes to Hopgood? There's very similar things in their price. I'm kind of thinking for my own team, because my second forward is a little bit weak, probably just going Hopgood, but I can't fault the trade-in of Isaako, because I think the fact that he plays those 7 games, no Hammer, no Gilbert, I think their point scoring will go down slightly, but he's shown pretty good stats so far. So I do like Isaako as the trade-in. Like, I prefer him to, say, the likes of a Gagai. Look, Gagai, like the Knights, I think, will win this week, because Ponga playing at fullback, Gagai in the centre wing, I think they'll kind of have a point to prove, and it's a weakened Manly team as well, and they're playing at home. So I know a few people, I think in other streams I've seen, maybe eyeing up Gagai as a bit of a pod. Again, just feels very, very expensive at over 700k. I'd be comfortable taking like a Isaako at a little bit cheaper. I'd even be comfortable just taking Mazu at 599k. Thank you to the guy who pulled me up on the price that I had there, because I think Mazu with Ponga fit and firing, I think will just mean that the left side attack will be good. Mazu scored like 49 points last week, doing absolutely nothing but just breaking tackles. So he's got that floor, 1 try and he'll get you like 70 points. And we know he's got the ceiling. He's got 2 tons to begin the season as well. So I really like Mazu at his price as well. Pretty manageable, break even of 63. I think I'd probably be happy to take Mazu over Gagai and take that kind of 12k price saving. In terms of some of the other options, let's say the Rabbitohs. So Alex Johnston, his average so far has been a little bit quiet, 56. Campbell Graham's definitely been taking the headlines, both NRL but actually in Supercoach point scoring too. Again, I'd probably take Johnston over Graham, just take that price saving with the hope that, without Latrell, if the ball is in Cody's hands more, he will dominate more on the left-hand side. That could just mean that Johnson just improves. And look, we've seen that Johnson over the last, his season-long average I've got here of 56 is not reflective of what we've seen in the last few weeks. The last couple of weeks, if I look at the last 5 weeks, it's 90, 29, 76, 40, 83. So it's a 5-round average of 64, 3-round average of 66. I think a mid-60s average is more likely what you're expecting from Johnston with this kind of run of games that they've got coming up. So I like Johnston at that price tag for sure. He's definitely one who, if you don't have, I think, not a must-have, but he'd be one of those players who would be very scary to not own this week. Expected points of 336, but if we pin him for a 64 average, it becomes 384. It's already higher than a Holmes. Val Holmes to Johnston feels like a pretty straightforward move that you can maybe bank extra points in games from. Campbell Graham, look, he's playing this week, but he's got some sternum injury, so I don't know what the go is, but he's very expensive again. So I think for me, he's probably one I'd probably just avoid. If you've owned him until then, well done, you've got him for this week. But I think as a buy, I think I prefer Isaako, Mazu, Johnston, and Garrick. I think purely just on the price tag. Finally, on Garrick, going to double check if he is actually 665k. Hopefully I've got that correct. Look, a break even of 5, so he's going to go up again in money. I know Manly will be weaker this week without all the Urbos and Cherry Evans, but he at the BE of 5, he just feels like a very safe trade in this week. That, look, even on a bad day, his lowest score this season in a non-injury affected game is 35, which is when he was actually playing at centre. His lowest game playing on the wing this season in a non-injury affected game is 44. His floor is fine. A 45-50 floor from Garrick is perfectly acceptable in a bye week, especially as well, where we're going to have a lot of players out. Newcastle can be leaky, so Manly can still score points. So I still like Garrick a lot as a trade in this week if you don't own him. So Steezers is asking, is Graham a buy? James is asking, is Graham a season hold? I mean, if you own him, then great. He's a good hold. Mudcrab does make a good point though, that if New South Wales lose the first game and Campbell Graham he's probably next in line, right, for maybe a wing spot. So I think that's potentially a risk with Campbell Graham, that maybe he can go back into the Origin squad as well. So I think there's enough maybe points against him that probably means I'd probably lean away from him as a new buy. But if you currently hold him, then you absolutely hold him for this week as well. Lockie Miller, I'll quickly touch on Lockie Miller. So Sonny just mentioned that in the chat. So Miller is a very cruel one for owners because he was looking really good, but Ponga coming back has kind of just reduced his output, and he did not look good on the weekend, and he's been subsequently dropped to the bench. Now, I thought he was going to get dropped to New South Wales Cup. That was the reports that we were seeing earlier in the week, but he's been named on the bench, and with a break-even already at 87, he's at 613k, so he's at a value that you can easily use you can use that money. So for me, Miller, like the game's even after, he's got a bye next week as well. So for me, like if you can go Miller to like Johnston, you're going from a guy who's been benched to a bye to a guy who's got Raiders and then the Titans. Like easy move. Garrick to him to Garrick, easy. So yeah, Lockie Miller, I think if you own, look, you don't have to sell him this week, but named on the bench, he will start leaking money this week with a break even of 87. So for me, yeah, Miller feels like one of those ones that unfortunately is probably a sell. And I think there's a lot of other good options at centre wing that you can look to pivot to. On this list here, I've got a few others that I couldn't fit in. Tomoko, Penasini, Sivo, and Charles Nickel-Klukstad. Now, Nickel-Klukstad, he's got a 54 average. He's probably one that, look, he's not the most exciting pick, but maybe give it some thought because, look, the draw is not great for New Zealand. Broncos are weaker. Dolphins, Raiders, then it's the Dragons after his bye, Rabbitohs, Parramatta, Sharks. It's not the best run on paper, but he's a fairly solid player who might get you like 50 a week. Like his last two scores are 43 and 43, which are okay. Probably doesn't have the ceiling, but if you want like a real steady option at maybe a slightly cheaper price at 529k, maybe he's an option that you can consider. I don't mind going Poddish and going for maybe like a Warriors outside back, just given the fact that they play 7 games. It's them or the Dolphins that do that. So I think that's something that is just worth noting, which is why his expected points look a little bit higher than some of the others that I've got in that table below me. Tomoko was very popular coming into this week, but he's very expensive. And look, what is he? He's 711k with 116 break even. Again, at the price tag, feels like a lot. I think you've got a lot of options. And remember, with your centre wing, you've got options coming back next week. Karaz will definitely be speaking about a lot next week. Just to give you my thoughts on Karaz, because I know he'll be a very popular trade-in for next week. He's 486k, break even of 47. So, very good price. Draw for the Bulldogs isn't fantastic. Roosters, look, to be honest, Roosters could be a good game. Parramatta then the Sharks. He misses round 17, which is a little bit annoying because round 17 is a very difficult week to cover. If you look ahead, that week is going to be a little bit tricky to navigate. So that's one thing that works against him, is that he has the bye in round 17, and he still hasn't looked 100%. Like if you looked at his scores pre-injury, purely base stats, 31, 46, 46, 41, 40. Like he was killing it. Since his injury, 27, 45 against the Warriors is good, but 26 again last week. I think overall he's still on the eye test. Like he's taking a lot of runs, but he's not kind of getting those over 8 meter runs nor the tackle busts. So with Karaz, he's one who I'm happy to maybe wait a week on next week and maybe look to round 15 potentially. But that's just some of my thoughts on Karaz, because I think a few people had mentioned him earlier. Tauto Moga, no, not with the Dragons run. It's not the most favourable run in my opinion. So like I'm looking at it here. Panthers, like it's the Dolphins this week, which is away. Then it's the Panthers, Rabbitohs, and then the bye. Warriors, Sharks, like doesn't scream the best run to me. And he's 493k. It's a bit of an awkward price too. Alright, that's kind of a thing enough on the centre wing. We'll quickly touch on the fullbacks, and I think that will round up our positions. I think we've gone through every other position. So you can see the mammoth exercise it was to put all this stuff together. We've already been going for an hour. So give the stream a like as well if you enjoy it. And thank you everyone for tuning in post the whole stream lag issues. Right, fullbacks. Yeah, lots of thoughts here about the fullbacks, and people who are owning the likes of Turbo, Teddy, Latrell, Reece Walsh. You've got some big decisions to make because all of these guys are playing Origin, so they're all out this week. And Turbo is probably the most difficult one because he's got a negative break even. And he just showed what he can do again. 165 points he scored last week. Now with Turbo, I think it depends on your second fullback. Let's say you own Turbo and Buller, Dream Buller. You don't have to go to another fullback because I think Dream is going to be a good own from the next week onwards. Brendan, to answer your question, the next slide will have the comparison with Gutherson, so don't worry, I've got you covered, Brendan. I've got you covered. I just wanted to show a standalone slide for just the Origin guys first. I think if you own Turbo now, the way that he played, misses this week and next week, like, geez, it's tough. I think if you can afford to get in a second fullback like a Gutherson or look, you don't even have to get a round 13 fullback is basically what I'm saying, because really the options are Ponga, Gutho, Drinkwater. There's not a lot of options, I guess, in that kind of spot. So like I'm looking at right off into the sunset. He's got Turbo and Buller. Buller, I think, has a negative break even. You definitely want to keep him. He'll cover round 16 for you. So it feels very difficult to sell Buller. It feels very difficult to sell Turbo. And you've got Gutho, who's coming off a poor week. Drinkwater playing for a Cowboys team who don't have a great draw. Ponga, who looks very good for this week because he could be goal kicking, playing at fullback, point to prove, but a HIA risk. There's no slam dunk pick in the fullback spot. So if you're a Turbo Buller owner, I think you could very easily just hold for this week. I don't think you need to sell. Teddy had a great game last week, but I still think he's one who I could feel okay about selling. Reason being is that I think Teddy will back up because game 1, he's got a 3-day turnaround against the Dogs. I think he'll play that week. Penrith will definitely play. Misses round 16. I think he'll back up pretty much every game. But even the games that he backs up are not the easiest on paper. And the thing is that he was good last week when we didn't have Manu in the halves. Manu is probably due to be back round 14. And I think he's going to maybe have a bit more of an impact on Teddy. So I think Teddy, even though he had a really great week last week, scoring a double and looking like, again, the main man that we know and love for SuperCoach, he still feels like one that I think you could afford to sell because he's not like one with a very low break even. And that's the thing. Actually, Art makes a good point. If you don't love any of those round 13 fullbacks, you can just go to someone like a Garrick. You can go to like a Isaako. Maybe one of those center wing dash fullback options is actually a better bet. So I think you can probably look to go that way instead. Now I'm looking at Jonty's question here. He's a Latrell Teddy combo. Do I need to sell one of them? And if so, which one? So Latrell is difficult. He's got a bye in round 20, 2-game turnaround after game 1, 3-game turnaround after game 2. So I'm going to assume he plays round 17, which is when he's got the 3-day turnaround. Whether he plays the 2-game turnaround is not as clear-cut because it's a Titans matchup that the Rabbitohs don't need to play him in, to be honest. But he's got the Dragons in round 15, which could be amazing. So you might get Titans, Dragons, Cowboys, Warriors. You could get those 4 games, or you can maybe just get 3 games. If it was, I think there's a good chance he backs up. But even on his top end, let's say 4 games he plays, I've got him down for 320 points. If I look at someone like Isaako, I had him at 530. Even if Isaako averaged 60 in those 7 games, it would be 7 times 60, which is, what's quick math, 420? 420. Yeah, 420. So there's a good chance that Isaako still outscores Latrell by like 100 plus points. So I think Latrell, he's the one that you want though during the whole Origin period. He's the one that you want after the Origin period. But I think you could maybe cash, like if you're a Teddy Latrell owner, I'd probably sell Latrell because he's at a higher price, less chance of him backing up compared to Tedesco. And so you can just do more with that money. But I think you'd want to be confident in your trades and how many trades that you've got left to be able to bring him back. So that's if you've got a Teddy Latrell combo. So Raging Bull, he's got Turbo and Walsh. I love that. You guys have all got different fullback combos. You keep helping my analysis for me. So yeah, Raging Bull saying he's got Turbo and Walsh, can't bring himself to trade in Ponga with his HIA risk. So with Walsh, I think Walsh has a decent chance of backup because I think as long as he gets through Origin unscathed, I think Brisbane will look to continue to play him because he's young, he's fit. I think the Broncos will want to try to keep winning games. They've got some winnable games, like a Sharks matchup with a 2-day turnaround could be a tough one, but he might play that one. He'll definitely play the Knights. I think he'll definitely play the Titans in round 17, plays the Dolphins, and I think somewhat decent chance of playing the Bulldogs. Like Walsh could be someone that you could hold because the games that he could back up for are not bad. And he's got a somewhat high break even, but I think he's shown even last week against Penrith that he's still able to put in some decent performances and get some good scores. And I think really with your fullbacks, if you don't have a strong gut inclination for any of those other fullbacks, you don't need to sell them. You don't need to sell them. I mean, if you like one of the centre wing options like an Isaako, then I think great, you can do that trade. But the likes of Gutho, Drinkwater, I don't think you need to force yourself into them. Just on those options. So Brendan, to answer your question, the comparison with the others we've got here. So I've included Gutho, Drinkwater and Ponga. So Gutho and Drinkwater should be playing 6 games each. Ponga, I've put 6 with a question mark because the thing is with Ponga, there's always a chance that, if Walsh doesn't play well, then Ponga could be straight back into the Origin squad. And that's probably another thing with Reece Walsh. If you can afford to hold him this week, look, there's a chance that maybe if he doesn't play well, he just gets put back out of the State of Origin squad. And you might actually have him back for your Origin period. So I like Parramatta's draw. I am a Gutherson owner. So I'm going to be, if you want to know my fullbacks, I've got Gutherson and I've got Buller. I'll be just holding them too. I've got my round 13 fullback, which is, it's fine. And Buller will cover me for round 16 as well. So I've got options there, so I can hold on to those two. Based on expected points, Gutherson I think outscores Ponga and Drinkwater. With Ponga, I have bumped his numbers up. So I've given him a 62 average instead of what he'll actually have on the SuperCoach website. The reason that I've given him a 62 average is, I can tell you in 1 second, I took out his game from round 2 when he only played 1 minute or 2 minutes. So I've taken out that, and I've just taken an average of every other game. So I've got an average of 62. That, you can see the highs and lows, 16 points in round 9, 114 in round 11. So I personally don't have the need to trade in Ponga, so I haven't really thought about it too much. Would I trade him in this week at 511k dual? If you've got the stomach for it, then I think fine, do it. I'm personally not in love with it, but I think it could be one of those weeks where you could just take the punt. You could just go Walsh down to Ponga, bank yourself 100-something K. You'll make some money out of Ponga with a -8 break even. I think Newcastle will beat Manly this week. Him playing at fullback, he could be goal kicking. I haven't got confirmation of that. It could be him or Hastings. You could even get him at 5'8". You could maybe skip one of Cody or Dylbags. If, let's say, that guy from before, he hated the price tag of Cody, I think you could just go Ponga instead if you feel like it. I can't knock the trade in because I think there's genuine upside to him that we know, and I think he's got a point to prove. I think the Knights with Gagai as well. I just think the team is set up to do well this week. Even the Saifidi boys didn't get named for New South Wales, right? So I think there's a lot of scorned former Origin players in that team that I think will do a number on Manly, in my opinion. So I think Ponga will score well this week, but with my team set up, I'm not looking to get him in. But if you're interested in Ponga and you've kind of got that feeling you want to get him in, I can't knock it. You obviously, know the risks, HIA and everything. So I'm not going to kind of rattle those off for you, but I think you just need to acknowledge that there's risk. But I prefer trading him in this week to, say, a Drinkwater, put it that way. Even with the thing that Ponga could go back to Origin. I just think this is one of those weeks where I feel like he'll just have maybe that 120 plus. And if you bring him in, and even if you captain him, that could be one of the weeks that really sets you soaring in the rankings. So for that reason, I think Ponga's the best point potential this week solely. Over the next 8 weeks, it's probably Gutherson because I think he's got the best chance of playing the most games and outscoring the likes of Turbo, Teddy, etc. But there's no standout options here. Will Kennedy, Ian, I haven't done Will Kennedy, but if I want to really quickly rattle up the numbers for you. So he's got an average of 74. Wow, I've been ignoring Will Kennedy. So he'll play 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so he'll play 6 games. 6 games times 74. Well, it would be higher than everyone else here. Kennedy's would be 444. So look, maybe Kennedy's an option. So this is another reason why you don't have to force in any round 13 option, because there could be others like Dylan Edwards. I like Dylan Edwards potentially as an option. We saw the Panthers draw earlier. It's pretty good. And he'll play between round 13 and 20. He'll play 6 games as well. And he's been averaging 77. So I think there's a couple of options there, like Kennedy, Edwards, who might be pods that you could go instead of the likes of a Gutho, Drinkwater, if you're not too keen on them. Right, that's me going through every position. My voice is killing me, but I'm going to finish the stream off, hopefully in about 4 or 5 minutes. Do give it a like if you enjoyed it. Whew, getting tired. Alright, captaincy. So just on captaincy this week, so you do have a free chance at a VC loophole this week. So I think you don't need to chase a ceiling as much as probably what you need to do in other weeks. If your VC gets maybe say, let's say 75, 80, like 75 points, I think it's one of those weeks where you can probably just bank those points and take the loop. So most of the players here I think are pretty safe for good points. From the first game, which is the Dragons-Dolphins, I think Isaako stands out, just given that he's goal kicking. So if you're trading him in this week, I think he's a pretty handy VC. I think if you do a VC on Isaako, then your best captaincy shout is probably one of Cody or Dylbags. Now, I just prefer Dylbags over Cody, purely just from, I think the matchup is better. If you look at the matchup in terms of ranking to conceding points to the opposition 5'8", I think Dylbags comes out better in that sense than Cody Walker. He's also just got more base. So let's say you VC Isaako and Isaako gets 60 and you want to say, I want to roll out Dylbags captain. Even if Dylbags gets no attacking stats, he can at least still get you like 45, 50. If Cody gets no attacking stats, he's giving you 20. So I think he's a little bit safer in that regard. I probably should also add Jeremy Marshall-King to the Dolphins VC. You can definitely VC Jeremy Marshall-King. Hopgood could be a very safe VC. Moses, Jaden, yeah, look, Moses is definitely a shout. The only reason I didn't include him here was space. Didn't have space to include Moses as well. I think if you own Moses, he's probably a better VC than Dylbags, just because he's got more of a ceiling, in my opinion. The fact that he goal kicks, we've seen the last 3 weeks, he's got 2 like big tons. So I would VC Moses over Dylbags, but I don't own him, so I'll be probably VCing Dylbags myself. And then in terms of the captain, a safe option is probably Tohu Harris. Let me repronounce. He's probably going to get you like 65 to 70. But look, honestly, if I was buying Ponga this week, I would captain Ponga. It's one of those weeks where, I don't know if you guys remember from last season, but if you guys remember the week where Joey Manu went 191, that was probably one of the only few times where I felt so confident about a player doing well that I was just like, got a VC Manu. I don't feel as strongly about it this week, but Ponga's up there in terms of like, if you own Ponga, I would be putting something on him. But you probably have to be captaining him because it's the last game of the week. So I think if you bring in Ponga, it's scary though, the HIA risk. Oh, it's so scary. Maybe if you Ponga, you can go VC like a Hopgood, because Hopgood's probably good for like 65, 70. And then if that's the case, probably just take those points. And look, Ponga's probably enough of a pod that even if he goes 100 plus, you will still be happy. AFB captain, yeah, Ian, that's probably a shout too. He's pretty safe as well. So I think you can look at him as a safe option. At the moment, I think in my team, I've currently got it on Garrick, but I'm kind of rethinking that because I think Newcastle will win. So I think in my current team, I'll probably go VC Brown, maybe captain. I mean, you could even consider like captain Alex Johnston, even as a bit of a rogue punt as well. So I'll probably the captaincy is a little bit interesting this week. I mean, if you bring in a Dolphins player, I'd probably just VC them and probably captain Hopgood or Dylbags. But I'll probably VC Brown and I'll probably captain one of Tohu or probably Garrick, I think, at this stage. Or Marzu, as Hamish says. Marzu's even a shout as well, given that he's got a pretty solid floor as well of about 45, 50. So I think this is the week where I think you can take a bit of a punt. There's no real kind of quality standouts, I guess. Okay. So that's all I had really on the topics for the week. You can tell that I told you it was going to be a long stream. We've already hit an hour, 15 minutes. And yeah, we're still going, but this is why I think I probably won't be able to do a dedicated Q&A this week. Sorry guys. I am hoping either on Thursday to either do a strictly Q&A lockout stream like I've done in the past, or I'll be on this Twitter Spaces one. Do follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. I'll put a link in the description below, but might be joining in a Twitter Spaces kind of Q&A chat as well, because I do appreciate that this week is quite important. So I want to try to do something separate Q&A wise, because I probably won't be able to do it today. But I'll quickly just finalize with my team and what I'm thinking about doing this week. So at the moment, I'm probably going to boost because... Oh, sorry. Can we quickly just shout out the hero that is Matt Dury? Matt Dury coming in clutch. So last week I forgot to sell him for Harrison Edwards, and so I ended up selling Pele to Harrison Edwards. How good did that work out for me? A little slice of luck. Matt Dury coming in to start this week is just fantastic. If Moses can send him over for a try, I will be so annoying on Twitter, but that's that. Anyway, what I'm looking to do trades this week. So my initial thoughts, Holmes is going. I think Gilbert is going. Welch is going to stay because Welch has been named at 19th man. So I think I might be able to just keep him during this whole origin period as maybe some depth. So I think Tohu Harris is going to come in for Gilbert. That's pretty straightforward, I think, for me. I definitely like the look of him this week. Val Holmes. See, I can sell Val Holmes for like one of Hopgood or Isaako. At the moment, I'm just slightly leaning Hopgood because I think my second row forward is looking a little bit dire. So I'm kind of going Hopgood at this stage. Selling Hynes, I think, for for Cody. And I'll use that Katoa spot to switch. And I need to fund with another 24k. So what I'm thinking is probably two things. I can either go Marnie to Cody Nikorima, or I can go Grant to Damien Cook. At the moment, I'm thinking Grant to Damien Cook is what I'm probably going to do. I can afford Robson, but I prefer Damien Cook. I mentioned it earlier in the stream. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. 4 Origin guys all going out and 4 non-Origin guys coming in. Although Cook could be an option. But that's what I'm thinking at this stage. And that would leave me with 13 for this week. So I would have, pretty much exactly bang on 13 for this week. Let me just quickly set up the team. Katoa would not be my captain. It would probably be, let's say, Garrick at this stage, or let's put it on Gregosaurus for the moment. Reserve Cody Walker for sure, and that's my 13. So if I show you my 13, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's my 13 if I do those trades. Steezes is asking, would I go Grant to Jeremy Marshall King if I could? 100%. Yeah, I think Jeremy Marshall King is the preferred option, but I just can't afford it with the money situation. Any cheapies? The only potential cheapie this week is Valence Tavare, but he's been named on the bench, which I think will kind of hurt his cash potential. So he's really the only kind of downgrade I think I'd be considering this week who might play this week. Captain Matt Dury, not a chance, Ian. I love him for this week, but there's not a chance that I will be captaining him. Now, one thing before I wrap up the stream, I will quickly show you the round 16 because this is what I was talking about earlier throughout the stream. I think you'll find that you're pretty well set up for round 16 already. So if I look at round 16, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm not going to count Dury, 6 Preston, 7 Hosking, 8 for Dylbags, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I'm that's 15 without Howarth and without Matt Dury, 14 without Schuster. So you're already set up for your best 13 for round 16. I think a lot of you will have this situation too. So this is why I don't mind going in on the likes of Dolphins players because they miss round 16, but I think you'll find that you're already well set up for that week anyway. And quickly just looking at round 19, at the moment, if all things remain equal, I'll have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm already on 12 as well. So this is kind of why this week I'm happy to maybe spend a bit more trades because I think that I'll be a little bit more well set up for the other 2 weeks. Anyway, I think I'm probably going to have to wrap up the stream there. We've been going for an hour, 20 minutes. I don't think I've ever done a stream this long before, but I feel like this week kind of needed it this week. So hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you do, and if you did, please do give it a thumbs up. I'll be putting the audio of the stream up on Spotify as well for people to listen back to. But hopefully you all appreciate the time and effort that went into this one. My voice is killing me. We've been going on for ages, so it's past 10 o'clock. I'm going to sleep soon. We'll try to do the Q&A later this week. A little bit tired now, but hopefully you all enjoyed that. I'll see you all in the next stream. Appreciate you all tuning in, and good luck for this week. Catch ya.